Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. I'm New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and I am joined here today by a great colleague and my good friend, New York State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli, as well as by my Executive Deputy Attorney General for Criminal Justice, Kelly Donovan, the Chief of my office's Public Integrity Bureau, Daniel Court, also Stacey Aronowitz, and Nelson Scheingold and Becky Shanley from the Comptroller's Office. We are here this afternoon to announce an arrest in a public corruption case involving a longtime member of the New York State Legislature. This morning, Queens Assemblyman William Scarborough turned himself into the authorities in Albany, where he will face multiple state and federal charges stemming from the theft and misappropriation of campaign and federal funds. A joint investigation between my office's Public Integrity Bureau, Comptroller DiNapoli's office, with the assistance of the FBI, has uncovered clear evidence that, as alleged in the complaint, Scarborough took money that had been donated by members of the public for use exclusively by his re-election campaign and instead put it in his own personal bank account for his own personal use. As alleged in our indictment, Scarborough, who has represented the people of Queens in the Assembly since 1994, withdrew or diverted more than $40,000 from the bank account of the Friends of Bill Scarborough Campaign Committee. The indictment charges that he withdrew $38,000 from the campaign committee bank account between January 2007 and last March. He deposited the money in his personal account and then withdrew it as cash for his own use. He also withdrew cash directly from the campaign committee account for personal use, and our investigation found that he took 5 checks worth a total of $3,450 that were made out to Friends of Bill Scarborough, endorsed them, Friends of Bill Scarborough, and deposited them in his personal account. The indictment charges that he used that money for his personal expenses as well. In addition, none of his 21 campaign filings with the State Board of Elections between 2007 and 2014 reported the withdrawals. Neither were they accounted for in the campaign committee's financial records. As a result of our investigation, Scarborough was arraigned this morning in Albany County on 2 felony counts of grand larceny and offering false instrument for filing. In addition to the state charges that he is facing, he is also facing federal charges for allegedly submitting 174 false reimbursement vouchers totaling $40,000 between 2009 and 2012. He submitted these to a state program that receives federal funds for reimbursing elected officials for per diem travel and other expenses incurred while on official state business. The federal investigation by our colleague, the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of New York, Richard Hartunian, and the Albany Division of the FBI, charges Scarborough with 4 counts of theft concerning a program receiving federal funds and 7 counts of wire fraud for allegedly transferring the stolen federal funds electronically into his bank account. In total, Scarborough is charged with stealing more than $80,000. If convicted of all charges, he could face as much as 37 years in prison. I want to thank my great partners in law enforcement and the great state comptroller, and this is another of the dozens of cases we have made since we entered into our unprecedented joint executive order to work together to stamp out public corruption. And I want to thank the U.S. Attorney, who we've worked with seamlessly on this matter and have a great relationship as well. Ladies and gentlemen, when people donate money to a political campaign, when the government puts up money to reimburse people for public expenses, we have to be able to trust that the money is going to be used for a lawful purpose and not just go into a politician's pocket. And when voters cast their ballot for a candidate, they really have to be able to trust that that person is going to abide by the law and will be honest and represent their interests fairly. When officials abuse the public trust, it is up to those of us who are charged with protecting that trust to take strong action. And that's why in the last 3 years, our office has been aggressive in pursuing public corruption cases. We brought more cases than this office ever has before. We've increased the number of auditors, investigators, And we have more public integrity staff in offices spread around the state, not just in New York, and the regional offices have been more heavily involved in rooting out corruption. And the reason that Comptroller DiNapoli and I entered into an unprecedented joint executive order between our offices that enable his auditors and our lawyers and investigators to work seamlessly together on cases involving abuse of public funds is that we need to restore public confidence that there is one set of rules for everyone. That confidence has been eroded by corrupt acts by public officials, and it is time to change the culture of corruption and send the message that there is one set of rules for everyone, and everyone has to abide by the law. Together, the Comptroller's Office and our office have pursued officials who funnel taxpayer money into their own pockets and those of their family and friends. In the last 3 years, our office has brought more than 50 public corruption cases against officials and their cronies, heads of nonprofits that serve as the vehicles for the abuse of these funds. This has included town supervisors, town clerks, a member of the New York City Council, a sitting state senator, and now we can add Assemblyman Scarborough's name to the list. We're working hard to restore confidence in the integrity of our public officials in Albany and all across the state, and we'll continue to aggressively pursue officials who abuse the trust of the people who elect them. And now I'm extremely proud to introduce my partner in fighting public corruption and a great state controller, Tom DiNapoli.
Thank you, Attorney General Schneiderman. It's always a privilege to stand with our Attorney General. I salute Eric Schneiderman on his leadership. I appreciate his partnership in this important work to restore public confidence in the workings of government. It's a sad day when we have to have an announcement like this, but this is reflective of the work that our teams are engaged in. I certainly appreciate the acknowledgement of Nelson Scheingold and Becky Shanley, who's here from my team, and I certainly want to, in front of the Attorney General, let him know he has quite an extraordinary and very, very professional team. Our joint efforts are significant. I think the impact has clearly been felt, and I'm hoping it will be lasting in terms of sending out a strong message that we will not stand for these instances of public corruption. But it really is a great team at the AG's office, and it's a wonderful opportunity in public service to work with them. It's a very clear message that we're sending out today. Elected officials cannot use taxpayer and campaign funds as their personal piggy banks. Assemblyman Scarborough tried to game the system, thinking he was going to get away with it. He did not. I salute all of those who've been involved in this effort. Certainly our Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman, U.S. Attorney Richard Hartunian, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This really is a partnership, and a partnership that is working. My office will continue to work with this team and prosecutors across the state to root out corruption and bring corrupt officials to justice. In an era where every dollar counts, we are holding those that abuse taxpayer money accountable. As you know, the Comptroller's Office follows the money at all levels of government, so we do look at fraud by local and state officials. We look at corruption involving vendors, those who do business with the state, and certainly our role in monitoring the retirement system is another area where we are ever vigilant. When our investigations and our audits find fraud or criminality, our office works aggressively with prosecutors, certainly starting with the Attorney General's office. But that includes the U.S. attorneys across the state and local district attorneys to hold accountable those who would defraud the state, and we work to seek restitution. This case, as Attorney General Schneiderman pointed out, is one of many that comes out of our joint effort with our Task Force on Public Integrity. This was a first ever joint effort. It enables us to marshal our resources early when we hear of a problem. It's an effort that has produced significant results, and it is an ongoing commitment that the Attorney General and I have to work collaboratively to hold people accountable. The Comptroller's Office has never done more in this area. It's why we continue to put a high priority on the work of our Division of Investigations. We certainly understand our role to be a vigilant watchdog, and we do it in partnership with those in law enforcement who can then take the next step and lead in a prosecution. Our message to anyone who serves the public is this: there are rules, and you have to follow those rules, whether you're an elected official, an appointed official, a government employee, or a contractor. We are sending a very clear message that unethical behavior will be investigated and will be prosecuted. Thank you again, Mr. Attorney General.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you all. And now take some questions. If you could just introduce yourself.
Alex Silverman, WCBS Radio. Specifically regarding these travel vouchers, do you see a systemic problem? Is there any oversight to ensure this isn't happening short of an investigation by your office?
The travel vouchers are an area of ongoing interest. I can't comment on any specific ongoing investigations, but there is supposed to be a system in place to verify that they're accurate, and we're looking into whether, in fact, that is the case. And I can't comment on other investigations in this area.
Grace Rouse from New York One. Whenever there is an announcement of charges against a public official in Albany, whichever office is bringing them says they hope it sends a message to other lawmakers that this kind of behavior is not going to be tolerated, and yet there continue to be more and more corruption cases. Can you speak sort of more broadly to what's happening in Albany, and is there going to be an end to this, and what is fundamentally going to get lawmakers to change their behavior?
I mean, in my view, what we're trying to do is change a culture. And I think there was a go-along, get-along culture where people would turn a blind eye to misconduct by others. It permeated not just the state government in Albany, but a lot of local governments as well. And I think that our offices, working in cooperation with other prosecutors, all of the U.S. attorneys' offices in the state, and quite a few district attorneys, are collectively sending a message that the culture has to change. It's over. I mean, it's always, as the controller noted, a sad day when you have to bring charges like this, but I do think that the message is getting through, and I do think that there are going to be changes, and there have been some reforms, and there will be more reforms to the way they do business in Albany. But the message very clearly is no one is above the law. We're looking at everything very carefully, and you know, decades ago, perhaps, I'm not saying people are more corrupt now than they were, but I think people are no longer willing to turn a blind eye to this. I think public confidence in the local and state government has been shot, and it's our job to restore that confidence.
There have been a rash of indictments and convictions in Southeast Queens in particular. I mean, some have said that that area is being unfairly targeted. I know Reuben Will said that. I mean, can you speak to the corruption charges that have come out of Southeast Queens, and also if you think it's been unfairly targeted?
No, I mean, we've brought dozens and dozens of cases, and if you ask the people we've indicted in Niagara County or in St. Lawrence County or in Elmira or any other part of the state, I don't think they'll tell you that we're concentrating all our efforts in Queens. We've pursued people, town clerks, town supervisors, and their cronies all over the state of New York, and we will continue to do so.
Back here. Both of you served in Albany, the legislature. How easy is it to do this? To commit a crime like this, and are there proactive steps that can be taken, or that should be taken, or that I don't think should be taken, to prevent these crimes before they occur, before they end up on your desks?
Well, I think I've been around long enough, and as a prosecutor, the Attorney General probably would have greater insight. If whatever the rules are, if someone's looking to break the rules, especially if it's going to line their pockets, they're going to figure out a way. And I think the point, as the Attorney General said, is that there is not a tolerance for those kinds of schemes. I'm not saying there was a tolerance in the past, but certainly I know in terms of the work that this office does, the Controller's Office, we have never devoted more resources, nor have we ever had as many outcomes where officials, be it at the state level or at the local government level, are being held accountable. Whether it's an instance like this, where it's using campaign funds for personal use or per diem money inappropriately, or in cases with village officials or town officials, fire district officials, where people are paying their personal bills on the government account. I think the bottom line is that too many people have a sense that no one really is looking, that there aren't adequate checks and balances. Well, the message is that we are doing what we can to be in as many places as we can be. When we sense something is amiss, we're going to follow it. But we're also going to follow it in a diligent and a responsible and a professional way. It is very serious when you are charging an elected official with a crime. So we have to be sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And in this case, I think we've more than done our job. There was a very clear trail for us to follow. And I think the message is for any other official, be it a member of the state legislature or at any other level of government, don't be so sure you're going to get away with it. Even if you have for a period of time, we're looking, the prosecutors across the state are looking, the citizens are expecting that of us, the taxpayers deserve that from us, and we are redoubling our efforts in this area.
Can you just talk briefly about the process of looking to target Bill Scarborough as opposed to somebody else? What first took you on this? Was it an anonymous tip? Was it some record that you were reviewing?
I don't want to comment on the specifics of the investigation, but the Comptroller's staff audits the use of funds, and because we have a joint executive order now, our investigators and attorneys can work seamlessly with their auditors and their investigators and attorneys, and we're able to bring cases using our collective resources in ways that never was possible before. For whatever reason, no state controller and attorney general have ever entered into this kind of an agreement and a relationship, and that's how we're becoming much more effective. And again, as the controller noted, it's all across the state, and it's not just the state government. It's a problem in local governments as well, which is why for the first time in the history of the Attorney General's office, I've put public integrity officers in each of our 13 regional offices, because we realized that, rightly or wrongly, a lot of people did not want to report local corruption to local prosecutors because they perceived them as being too close to some of the local officials they wanted to report. We've been making cases that way. We've been making cases from the audits of the controller, and we will continue to do this until the message gets through.
Tina Baylor from the Associated Press. I think you were talking about your officers are collaborating, and in this particular case, you also have the U.S. Attorney and the FBI. Is that something you're also doing more of and seeing more of, or looking at federal U.S. attorneys here in the southern part of the state, more of that kind of multi-level?
Yes, I mean, in our office, there are 4 U.S. attorneys in New York State, and Western District, Northern District, Southern, and Eastern. My office is working with all of them, and we have good collaborative relationships. And I think that in addition to the fact that the offices of the State Attorney General and Controller have been more aggressive about bringing and pursuing these cases, I think the same can be said of our federal counterparts. And I think that's why people have the sense of there are a lot of indictments. That's because there are a lot of indictments.
And there's more partnership, certainly from our office.
Yes.
We're working more with prosecutors at every level.
Last two, Tom.
Tom Kaplan from the New York Times. Did any portion of this case, either state or federal, originate with the referral from the Moreland Commission?
I don't really want to comment where we got the evidence. We've explained how we pursued this, and let me just leave it at that.
Georgette Rollins with the New York Post. He used campaign funds for personal expenses. What exactly did he spend money on?
Well, over a period of time, he took out a lot of cash, and cash is fungible, so it's hard to tie the specific withdrawals to specific expenses, but he was clearly using the money he was getting from the abuse of the per diem system and the abuse of the campaign finance system for his own personal affairs. He's paying his bills.
One or two off. Vanessa, just a quick question. I always understood that the comptroller would audit things like expenditure of state money and travel vouchers. I don't think I knew until today that the comptroller you're auditing campaign finance filings also? That's in your jurisdiction?
No, actually, under some of the reforms that were passed this legislative session, our office is able to do that. This started out with auditing of the abuse of state funds and violations of federal law in connection with that, and the rest of it grew out of that. But we are empowered to bring this sort of case now.
So Tom's office is not auditing campaign finance filings?
Not the filings per se, but the referral on this case led to that money trail.
Vanessa.
Yeah. Vanessa Rodoff from Channel 2. We're wondering if you are investigating New York fashion braces as an orthodontic office throughout the city, and if so, what advice do you give to several hundred patients that have been duped out of thousands as officers?
I mean, I can't comment on whether or not we're doing investigations. We encourage everyone who feels that they have been scammed or abused to get in touch with our office, and we have been very, very responsive to these complaints.
Okay, real last question, Lauren.
Lauren Adams from Capital New York. Do you think that the leaders in state government in the
Assembly, Senate, the governor bear some responsibility for the culture of permissiveness that maybe has led to some of this corruption?
I mean, I don't want to comment on that. I know that the system is designed, as the controller pointed out. There's a certain amount of discretion and trust placed in elected officials under the theory that the check on them is the electorate. They have to stand before the electorate and be reelected. Clearly, that has not been enough in some cases, and it's not just a matter of the state legislature. This is something that is a problem in layers of government all across the state. So I think the message is no one is above the law, and just because you stand for reelection doesn't mean that you're not going to be subject to scrutiny by the Controller's Office, my office, and other prosecutors.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.